Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Gospel of Matthew. We're in chapter 27. Now we're going to read verses 51 through 56 today. When we were together last time, Jesus yielded up his spirit and died on the cross. Matthew writes, "And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split, and the tombs were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they entered the holy city and appeared to many. Now the centurion and those who were with him, keeping guard over Jesus when they saw the earthquake and the things that were happening, became very frightened and said, 'Truly this was a Son of God.' And many women who were looking on from a distance, who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to them, among whom was Mary Magdalene, along with Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee." Okay, we get a bit of detail here that we don't get anywhere else. The curtain of the temple is torn in two from top to bottom. This curtain that separated the holiest place from the holy place, that would have separated the Ark of the Covenant, if it was there at the time. We're not sure, if it was there at the time, it would have separated the Ark of the Covenant from the rest. That space that was created by the curtain, that no one could enter in except for the high priest, and only one day a year, on the Day of Atonement. That space has been opened up. That space that represented God's actual presence, the Shekinah glory of God. That curtain, which was very heavy, was torn in two from top to bottom. 3 stories up. From top to bottom, that curtain is torn in two. This is not something a human being did from the bottom up. It happened from the top to the bottom. There was an earthquake. It was already dark. There was an earthquake. Rocks were split. The garden tombs, the caves, the cave tombs, that were right near that area were opened up. And it says the bodies of the saints were resurrected. I don't know that this is actual resurrection, the way Lazarus was raised from the dead and then went on to live his life. That's not what's being described. Recognizable bodies of the dead are making appearances in Jerusalem and are seen by others. And I think it's just that and only that, because that's what the text says. And we're not told that people were raised from the dead like the widow of Nain's son or Jairus' daughter, who may have grown up to get married and have kids. I don't think that's what's being described here. It says the bodies of those who had passed were raised and entered the holy city and were seen by many. These folks went on living after this, and they were inspirited bodies. Then, this would have been a bigger deal. People would have known this, and we would have had some report about this. But the way Matthew words it, I think we're talking about the bodies themselves of the deceased are now animated and have strolled into Jerusalem, and people have seen those who were clearly dead, seen their bodies strolling around the city of Jerusalem for this time. And now we have 2 groups. We have the soldiers who crucified him, and the centurion with his cohort there, and the women who followed him from Galilee. These are 2 groups of people that generally we know to be good groups of people. I mean, the centurion and the Roman soldiers humiliated Jesus, beat Jesus, and crucified Jesus. This is what they were asked to do. This was their job. They did it with more vigor than was warranted. They certainly didn't need to humiliate him the way that they did. I'm not letting these men off the hook. But every other centurion and Roman soldier that we meet in the Bible, in the Gospels and in Acts, are good guys. They just are. And Jesus says they are, and Paul and Peter says they are, and Paul's life is saved 3 times by 2 different centurions. And so we are not surprised when, despite the fact that the Jews have all of these evidences that they have crucified the Son of God, the torn curtain in the temple, the earthquake, the darkness, the bodies of the deceased rising up, they don't make this confession of faith. It's the Romans that were there with the centurion. In a fairly good movie, I mean, there isn't really one definitive movie about the crucifixion. There's some that are not worth your time at all. King of Kings with Jeffrey Hunter, Cowboy Jesus in it. Don't bother watching that. But Max von Sydow, in The Greatest Story Ever Told, is a pretty good movie. Jamie McCallum, who plays Ducky on NCIS, is Judas in that movie. Anyway, Sidney Poitier in that movie is Simon of Cyrene. Telly Savalas is Pilate. And John Wayne is the centurion in a cameo. Rides up on a horse, of course, dismounts, and says, "Truly this was the Son of God." Well, that's not exactly accurate, because all the soldiers were saying that amongst themselves in Matthew's Gospel. And then the women, and 3 of them are mentioned particularly. But there was a band of women that traveled with the disciples. Luke tells us this in Luke's Gospel, Luke chapter 7, that ministered to Jesus with their own funds. And he mentions them, 2 of them specifically, 3 of them specifically, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James and Joseph. Is that Mary the mother of Jesus? That's kind of problematic, but some have seen that there. Of course, Jesus does have a brother named James. And then the mother of the sons of Zebedee. I don't think this is Mary, in other words, James and John's mother. I don't think this is Mary, the mother of Jesus, because I think from John's Gospel, she was taken away by the Apostle John the very moment that Jesus gave his mother into John's care. That's what John's Gospel says. So this is a different Mary, the Mary of James and Joseph, and the original readers would have known exactly who she was, but we don't. But we do know Mary Magdalene, and we know the sons of the mother of James and John. I mean, she's the one who asked just days before if her children could be on either side of Jesus in his kingdom, and he said, "Can they drink the cup that I'm about to drink?" And they said, "Sure." And now they know what that cup is, don't they? Okay. We're going to talk about the burial of Jesus next time and Joseph of Arimathea. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.